Aotearoa, welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly Sacred Council Law and Consultant current affairs beam live from the Palatial Stratus News bunker, buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show were the Labour Party list, it could have heterosexual straight shooter after heterosexual straight shooter all masturbating furiously to good old-fashioned boy-on-girl porn, and it would still be too gaggly and too gay for rednecks from the West Coast. And tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone. MediaWorks deal so shonky it could have been cut in Libya. Claiming that we are more competitive than Australia by having 30% lower wages is like claiming we are dealing with unemployment by having a high suicide rate. Secret Intelligence Service secretly wants secret army of narcs to be immune from prosecution. Shh, it's a secret. Plus this week's Sex in the Super City, Wanko of the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hair of the Week Award. Leading the war on news this week, brothers and sisters, while MediaWorks have been bought off with crony capitalism and TVNZ7 have been shut down altogether, the next group who needs to be blinded so that scrutiny isn't focused on the impact of government policy are the journalists at NZPA. They were told that as part of the redundancy agreement, they can't work for APN or Fairfax in New Zealand and Australia. Fairfax have just listed 10 jobs. These jobs closed before the end of the consultation process the EPMU have entered into for redundancy negotiations, meaning union journalists are being penalised by a redundancy date that makes it impossible for them to apply for the few jobs left remaining. What a moment of pure Crosby Textor-esque Machiavellian happy coincidence that the last unionised newsroom in New Zealand is maimed just before the most ideological electoral battle we've ever seen. Meanwhile, the next Australian owner of TVNZ, Rupert Murdoch, had his world of the news apologising for hacking into people's private phone messages. Whānau, I can't wait for the 6 p.m. One Network News under the control of Rupert. It'll be fronted by Michael Laws and Paul Henry, with guest reporters John Banks, Don Brash and Rodney Hyde. From time to time, they'll invite Garth McVickers on to provide balance. Brothers and sisters, West Coast banjo enthusiast and staunch heterosexual Damien I don't wax my pews for no one mate O'Connor has described the list process within Labour as dominated by unionists and a gaggle of gays. Firstly, Damien, the collective term for gays isn't a gaggle, it's a conclave of homos. And if the gays are young, it's an evening clutch of twinks. The collective term for self-defined straight shooters like Damien O'Connor is a murder of breeders. Thankfully, the murder of breeders faction of the Labour Party is as extinct as the future of West Coast coal. Maybe someone should tell Damien that if you can't win the West Coast by not being a redneck, then maybe it's not worth winning. Could someone please put a cock in Damien's mouth to shut him up? Brothers and sisters, as biased as the Urewera trial, where disgustingly a judge and not a jury will be left to decide the fate of Tama Iti and his merry militia, the New Zealand police have decided that they aren't just the brutal arm of state suppression, they are also music critics. The mighty Tiketane was arrested this week during a performance at a Tauranga nightclub. He was performing when the police turned up for one of their tedious random inspections, and when Tiki busted out the very lovely NWA ditty Fuck the Police, the Tauranga police decided they didn't appreciate the song and went back at 3 a.m. and arrested Tiketane, claiming he was causing behaviour likely to cause violence. Note, it wasn't the cops coming back at 3 a.m. to arrest Tiki for singing a song they didn't like that was behaviour that would cause violence. Oh, no. Apparently, it's the performance of NWA that can cause violence. Whānau, the cops tried to pull this shit on Dave Dobbin during the Queen Street riot a quarter of a century ago. Do we really want the bloody New Zealand police deciding what songs they can arrest people based on their personal level of offence for? That's what the Taliban do. Aren't we in Afghanistan killing civilians to stop this sort of shit from happening? What about other songs like Public Enemy's Get Up and Get Down, 911's A Joke in Your Town? Will that get me arrested by the knuckle-dragging police music critics of Tauranga? How about Rage Against the Machine's mighty anthem Killing in the Name Of, where those that burn crosses are the same that hold office? How about the Tauranga cops stick to their Barry Manilow and the goings-on at the Coco Cabana, and that they don't arrest arrest artists for singing songs they don't like? Why can't the New Zealand police stick to a culture of sexual misconduct and assaults on prisoners that require testicles to be removed and get out of our collective iPod shuffle? In the words of Rage Against the Machine to the Tauranga police, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. To the headlines, whānau. MediaWorks deal so shonky, it could have been cut in Libya. Brothers and sisters, the more and more that comes out about this $43 million loan to MediaWorks at an interest rate that Ironbridge could not have gained on the open market, the more and more it stinks. What did the CEO of MediaWorks, Brent Impey, say to John Key for him to reverse Ministry of Economic Development advice not to loan the money to MediaWorks? Why weren't notes taken during this private meeting, and why on earth are meetings of such importance being discussed in the green room of a bloody telethon? I don't understand why we are butchering public broadcasting while lending money to an overseas company once owned by the minister who signs off on the deal, all against the advice of the Ministry of Economic Development. $43 million could fund TVNZ7 for 6 years. John Key initially denied the meeting even happened. Why are deals this large being cut at events like this? Does Key also do trade deals at Mardi Gras, dairy subsidy negotiations in Las Vegas? Serious policy that involves a financial deal that goes against the advice of your own ministry deserves a fuck of a lot more attention to detail than a private meeting between a bloody Prime Minister of New Zealand and the CEO of the company wanting the deal in the back room of a telethon. Did Brent Impey sing "Thank you very much for your kind donation" when John said yes? Whānau, this isn't how you run a country. This is how you run the mafia. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. Claiming that we are more competitive than Australia by having 30% lower wages is like claiming we are dealing with unemployment by having a high suicide rate. I mean, there's the always look on the bright side of life philosophical discourse, and then there's whatever the bloody hell the Minister of Finance is sniffing. After all that catching up with Australia money spent to keep Don Brash busy, rather than attempt party coups, Bill English has decided trying to catch up with Australia can be achieved if he keeps labour costs near that of unemployed dingoes. Using Bill English's logic, he would also claim that if we just started employing children to re-mine Pike River Mine, we could finally be competitive with Australia's minerals industry. So this is how the government slip out of the whole catching up with Australia's song and dance they've conjured up, is it? Claim our appallingly low wage rate caused by his party in the 90s deunionising New Zealand is actually our competitive advantage? Forget tie me kangaroo down sport as a tune to whistle while beating Australia. It's tie me collective bargaining down, mate. Tie me collective bargaining down. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. The government began secret hearings into the extension of secret powers the Secret Intelligence Service secretly fantasised about last week, and so far, not so good. It seems the SIS would like to start outsourcing some of its spying duties directly to the good people of New Zealand. Forget citizen blogging, the SIS would like citizen narking. The SIS proposes a vast new network of informants within society who would be immune from prosecution if they agreed to start spying on their fellow New Zealanders. Why we need a secret army of narcs who are immune from prosecution isn't clear. But seeing as the SIS spent decades spying on the sex lives of Green Party members and anyone who might have ever worn a Che Guevara t-shirt as a teenager, wouldn't we want to rein in the powers of the secret police rather than allow them to open up a Pacific franchise of the Stasi? And why does the desire for the SIS to create an army of narcs have to be heard in secret? Surely New Zealanders should know the SIS want to actively recruit informants to spy on us directly. Shouldn't we all be made aware that a government department wants to bypass the laws specifically restricting the powers of the state by getting individuals to do the dirty work whilst extending legal protections for those individuals? The reason we need to hold these requests for vast new powers in secret is because if you hear them in open, the terrorists win. That's right, whānau. Terrorists want open government and transparency with a clear democratic evaluation of the power of the state, and that's why we can't be honest with the vast new powers the SIS want. If we were honest, Osama bin Laden himself will be planning to attack Auckland by flying a plane into the Sky Tower. Do you want the terrorists to win? Of course you don't. That's like asking if you want Australia to win. So by hiding the extension of powers by the secret police, we are beating the terrorists. And you want to beat the terrorists, right, New Zealand? Because if you don't, we have people who can watch you. Isn't it hilarious? In the Middle East, people are using social media to overthrow the secret police. In New Zealand, we're allowing the secret police to use social networking to overthrow us. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. Brothers and sisters, a $2 million plastic waka we won't own is one thing. A cloud tent secretly agreed to before the mayoral election that won't even house Rugby World Cup partygoers is another. Why the bloody hell are we paying for this cloud tent if it's nothing more than a glorified exporters pavilion? Why aren't those exporters paying for this tent? Why are taxpayers and ratepayers paying for it? Let's not pretend that no one knew this was coming. I asked Len Brown directly about this on the 22nd of September last year at a mayoral debate as to why we were secretly earmarking millions to be spent on a cloud tent temporary structure at the party central waterfront location, and why was this cloud tent decision being announced after the election. Now we know why. It's not going to be party central at all. It's a gift from the people of New Zealand to the exporters of New Zealand, which is a bit of an irony when currently most of the wharf is being used as a car park for the importers of New Zealand. Fine, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. This week's Wanko of the Week has to go to what this government considers nice to have and too big to fail. AMI turn up with their pockets turned out like Alan Hubbard's long-lost broke son for another corporate bailout, and we're told we have to because AMI are too big to fail. I'll tell you what's too big to fail. Our public education system is too big to fail. Our public health system is too big to fail. Our public services that hold together the community services that give the support our society needs are too big to fail. Why is it always corporate welfare and not social welfare that National wants to help out first? Whānau, how can the welfare of the least well-off be denigrated to the level of nice to have? And is it an interesting what John Key defines as nice to have? $1.7 billion to Mr Magoo at South Canterbury Finance was nice to have. The $30 million to the private education industry was nice to have. The $30 million to Warners for the manufacture crisis at the Hobbit was nice to have. Those 34 luxury BMWs were real bloody nice to have, especially with the optional extras like massage seats, separate air conditioning units, high performance speakers, and let's not forget the specially built seat heaters to warm up our politicians' bottoms. Those are really nice to have, aren't they? One gets the feeling that this government's nice-to-have list and the nice-to-have list most New Zealanders would prefer are about as distant as the Pope's nice-to-have list and Charlie Sheen's nice-to-have list. Let's end the show by handing out this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award has to go to our very own John Key for ordering the New Zealand Navy to attack Greenpeace. That's right, the smile and wave multi-millionaire vacant optimist that keeps the simple Shire Volk of New Zealand happy with his empty promises and geeky dad routine has decided to try and bring the New Zealand Navy into attacking Greenpeace to protect overseas oil interests. Greenpeace have, of course, been protesting against John Key's decision to allow Petrobras a 5-year attempt at turning the east coast into the Gulf of Mexico. With the largest confiscation of the foreshore and seabed out of the way, all is clear for the vast molestation of New Zealand's coastal resources by overseas interests, which you had all assumed was about your bullshit white people can have access to the beach crap. The Minister for Murder and Masochism, Jerry Brownlee, has assured New Zealanders that Petrobras has given him their word that they will follow best practice to minimise the environmental impact of drilling for oil. National have realised they can't mine on conservation land, so they decided to do it somewhere you can't see them mining in the hope New Zealanders are stupid. At least now we know why National are refusing to dump the $875 million refit of missiles for the Navy. John might need them to sink protest ships. Why do we need the French to bomb Greenpeace when John Key is so willing? That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget Citizen A plays Friday, 7:30 p.m. Preview 21 and Sky 89. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter account and Citizen Bomber Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Righto.